football! Oh boy. And here you went, getting some reasons for hope and optimism. A house cleaning. Head coach fired. General manager fired. Team president being reassigned, no longer going to be overseeing football operations. Bears football! Oh my God, what a Black Monday for the Chicago Bears organization this turned out to be. Son of a bitch. Now, it seemed like in the morning, it's like a tale of 2 days, really, all within one. The morning, you find out the head coach, Matt Nagy, has been fired. We all anticipated this, saw this coming. Like, it's absolutely the right call to make. And he was sent packing after 4 seasons in Chicago. The weird thing about it is, and if anything, it's an indictment of the Bears football organization as much as anything else, is that when you think about it, over the past decade, Matt Nagy is easily the best coach this team has had since Lovie Smith. Absolutely. And he is easily the second best coach since Ditka, only Lovie being better. So as much as we were eager to get rid of Matt Nagy, and he absolutely positively needed to be shown the door, that is more of a ringing indictment of Bears football, that everybody couldn't wait to run that fucking bum out of town, and yet he's not even close to the worst head coach that you've seen. And in fact, he's one of the better Bears coaches that I've seen in my lifetime. That's sad. That's pathetic. And I will give Matt Nagy his props on this. When he released his statement after this firing, he didn't thank the fans, and you know what? I can't fucking blame him. Fans made his life a living hell, and then you had those idiots that were chanting "Fire Nagy" at his son's fucking football game. That's stupid. No, he doesn't need to rise above or show class. He just ignored it, as he fucking should have. He basically said, to you. And to Matt Nagy, with all due respect, we say, to you. Thanks for wasting 4 years of our fucking lives. Now, there was more uncertainty around general manager Ryan Pace. And you had those that thought that the McCaskey family loved Ryan Pace and that they could potentially reassign him. They could potentially promote him. They could keep him general manager. They could absolutely fire him. Like, we really didn't know. And you had those that were making, I almost feel like, preemptive strikes, preemptive moves as a way to justify and rationalize in their mind why such an incompetent, mediocre to bad at his job general manager after 7 seasons with no playoff wins should be allowed to continue with the organization in the same capacity, a different capacity, or a larger capacity. That's what it was, preemptive defense, because there's no logic to it at all. Like in a bucket. And your whole thing of, well, who they could bring in might be fucking worse. You know what? That's not a good enough reason to keep the guy that hasn't done the job well for 7 years. The right thing to do was to fire the general manager. He got the first 2 coaching hires wrong. Why would you give him a third? To which you say, well, he wasn't really that involved with John Fox. No, the day that he signed off on fucking John Fox and let that shit happen and basically let Ernie Accorsi and his recommendations fucking bitch out Ryan Pace, that's when you knew Ryan Pace was doomed to failure for this Bears organization. So no, pretty boy Pace needed to fucking go, and I'm glad he's gone too. Now, whereas you look at Matt Nagy and you say, what's he going to do next? Like, maybe he goes back to Andy Reid in the Kansas City Chiefs. Maybe Eric Bieniemy gets a head coaching job and, you know, he could come in and be either the quarterback coach or offensive coordinator there. Who knows? Matt Nagy might also take a year off. Certainly could make sense. As far as Ryan Pace, I'm sure somebody will have interest to bring him into their front office as a personnel director or some type of lead scout. And I look at somebody like the Los Angeles Rams and I say, for a team that's lacking in first-round picks, you know, Ryan Pace and his scouting department had a pretty good history in recent years with some of their day 3 picks. The Rams are going to need to hit on some of those day 3 picks. That's just one team that I could think of that could use Ryan Pace's services. Like, see, I'm not a total penis here. But these 2 clowns needed to fucking go. And I even see some of the fans be like, oh, you were so harsh on them. No, at the end of the day, they wasted years of our fucking lives. They were bad at their jobs. It's a ruthless business. And the business is supposed to be winning goddamn football games. And they didn't do nearly enough. I don't apologize for that whatsoever. Now, as much as you wanted that to feel good in the morning, and you were feeling like, oh man, this could be something. We've been down this path before. And when you saw the word come out that Goofy George, gosh, was going to have an afternoon press conference, you knew something was afoot. You knew that all those positive vibes and feelings you may have had in the morning, all that hope for those of you that are Harbums and say, we want Harbaugh! Well, Bears football! Because what you saw out of George McCaskey, Goofy George himself, gosh, and Bean Counting Ted, is exactly the epitome, the personification of everything that has become Bears football over the past several decades. Now, some of you might be saying, after 20 years of shitting on Ted Phillips and 20 years of wanting this bum fucking out of there because he's a bean counter, he had no business being team president, being involved with football operations, you finally got your wish, Jeff. Why are you bitching about it? He's not going to be involved with football operations, yet he's going to be involved with the hiring of the next general manager and head coach and be involved with their contract negotiations. How's that fucking worked out traditionally? Bears football! I realize it runs 3 decades plus back deep. That Ted Phillips, the McCaskey family, is indebted to him for life because they are incompetent in everything they fucking do, including their finances, got into huge tax trouble, and Bean Counting Ted, his accounting history, saved their fucking ass, saved the franchise financially, and saved the McCaskey family personally from financial ruin. He did. So of course he's never going to go anywhere because personal loyalty and this shit that happened decades ago. You know, if you watch wrestling and you watch WWE, who I compare Ted Phillips to? Ted Phillips is to George McCaskey what Kevin Dunn, what's up, Doc? What's up, Doc? You bore me. What's up, Doc? Is to Vince McMahon. Some old shit from decades ago where something happened, it meant a lot to the ownership, and the guy has a job for life. Is basically what it is. That's who Ted Phillips fucking is. He is Kevin Dunn of the Chicago Bears. And you could tell, my fucking God. And to make it even better, we're putting Bean Counting Ted in charge of business operations, including negotiating a new stadium deal. Hey, knock knock. Who's there? Duh who? Duh, you dumb motherfucker, Goofy George, gosh. Maybe you wouldn't have to be negotiating a new stadium deal if the asshole you're putting in charge of these negotiations got it right 20 fucking years ago. Holy shit. I mean, that situation back 2+ decades ago was botched and mangled on so many different fucking ways. Of course, the McCaskey family and the city of Chicago all combined to make that abortion of a UFO taking a huge dump in the Roman Coliseum. Like, everything about that was fucked up. Bears football in Chicago to the ultimate degree. So yeah, let's put Ted in charge of that, because I'm sure that's going to go well. But it's way more than that. So basically what we're doing is we're almost creating Ted Phillips' position and viewing it as a legacy position. There won't be a team president for the Chicago Bears anymore. The general manager is going to report directly to Goofy George McCaskey. And you have to ask yourself, you really have to ask yourself, after watching that press conference yesterday, why would anybody worth their weight in anything want anything to do with this fucking clown show? Why? Because you want a Jim Harbaugh to come to Chicago? Why the fuck would he come here? He would have to give him full personnel power and so much money that you just cannot reasonably expect Ted Phillips and the McCaskey family to be willing to pony up. You just can't. There's nothing in the history that indicates that this is an organization from top to bottom that cares about winning enough to where they will put enough monetary value on it. They just don't. But it gets even worse. Can you imagine That's even imagining if there was somebody within the Bears organization from a PR standpoint to help prepare George McCaskey. Because if you watch yesterday's press conference, it sure doesn't fucking seem that way. You take the passing of Jeff Dickerson and, you know, what happened with his son now is without both of his parents, lost both to cancer in a couple of years, which really fucking sucks. Terrible. And all the while, you try to spin that in a way to where you can take pot shots at Bears fans because they were sitting there chanting Fire Nagy in Matt Nagy's son's football game. Nobody fucking asked you for your opinion on this, George. No, shut the fuck up. And maybe, just maybe, if you weren't so fucking incompetent and the Bears weren't so consistently shitty, those types of dumbass things wouldn't happen. You ever think about that, huh? To the, I'm going to basically call out Olin Kreutz and say he's a fucking liar. We know Olin Kreutz isn't fucking lying, unless you're some dumb dick like the Bears blog on fucking Twitter. Everybody knows this is true because their pattern of behavior, their track record indicates that this is absolutely something the Chicago Bears would fucking do. Now, could it be somewhat misleading? Perhaps. Misleading versus flat out lie is something different. If you're saying, hey, they offered him a salary, but maybe Olin Kreutz is saying if I work 60 hours a week, it only equates to $15 an hour. The point being, it's still typical bean counting Ted bullshit. So of course it's true. Why would you go out of your way in a press conference where you had yet another season where you failed to make a playoffs, yet another season you won't be winning a Super Bowl, yet another fucking season where you have to fire both the head coach and general manager? Why the hell are you bashing on a beloved member of the Chicago Bears family and Olin Kreutz? It makes no fucking sense. Sitting there and throwing a pot shot at David Hall, and David Hall gave it right back to him because Hall was on mute. He said, well, that's the best question you ever answered. I said it'll be better than any answer you give. Amen, dude. But God, so many Bears fans had to be devastated. It was so bad. This press conference was such an abortion that Joe Judge somehow, someway is still an NFL head coach and nobody is fucking talking about that by the time he got to yesterday afternoon. Everybody was talking about Bears football. People from the outside saying, oh my God, you deserve better. Hey, everybody outside of Chicago, no we don't. Chicago fans have put up with this shit for generations. They don't deserve better. And that's the problem. They don't care to push for better. They don't demand better. So you don't get better. And the whole thing of, well, we're going to have myself and Bean Counting Ted involved with the next general manager and head coaching hires. Oh, that's a good one. That's the same fucking shit all over again. It is to make it even better. Whether it's Jerry Angelo and when they say consulting. No, it was a fucking headhunting firm back in 2001. Now remember, even with 2001, even though they were going to move on from Mark Hatley, they still let him run the draft that year. Do you remember that? Angelo wasn't hired until the goddamn summer of 2001. A lot of you probably don't remember that. A lot of you certainly do. When we get rid of fucking Emery and fucking Tressman, we're going to bring in Ernie Accorsi and he's going to guide us, right? So, of course, he guides you towards Ryan Pace and John fucking Fox. That was a good one. So now, 6, 7 fucking years later, you go knocking down the door of this same path again. We're going to consult with Tony Dungy. We're going to consult with Bill Polian. And you think to yourself, hey, that's great. Bill Polian. This is a guy that in 3 different organizations built multiple teams that went to the Super Bowl. Until you think about it and you say, the Bills that he built went to 4 straight Super Bowls, lost them all. Went to the Carolina Panthers, built that team up, built that organization up. Then he goes, where? The fucking Indianapolis Colts. And what happens there? The one goddamn Super Bowl his team wins with a generational all-time talent at the quarterback position like Peyton Manning is because of Bears football and facing off against Rex Grossman in the goddamn Super Bowl. So the guy that you're bringing in, that's almost 80 fucking years old, that a few years ago thought Chad Kelly was the most talented quarterback in the draft, that thought that Lamar Jackson should play wide receiver in the goddamn league. This same dude, this same guy, who won his one Super Bowl entirely, solely, and exclusively because, not what he did, but because he benefited against going up against Bears football in the Super Bowl. He's the guy that you're bringing in to consult. It's fucking Accorsi 2015 all over again. Some guy named Bill Polian and Soup are gonna save the fucking day. Unbelievable. Not surprising. Oh, if you're surprised, what fucking planet have you been living on? For all of you that are getting all hyped up about the possibility of Harbaugh, like A, assume he's just using Chicago as leverage to get more money from Michigan. B, there are other opportunities out there that certainly have to be a little more appealing. C, why in the fuck would he want to come to this dumpster fire that he once was a part of many, many moons ago? The first names are the same, but it's still the McCaskey lineage, the McCaskey legacy. And to the whole thing of George McCaskey, well, the board seems pretty proud of me and the job that I'm doing. I guarantee your fucking crypt keeper mother isn't. The only problem is that she's knocking on 100, so she don't fucking give a shit anymore. But she also fired your brother one time back in the day. She fired Michael McCaskey because of botching the Dave McGinnis situation of all fucking things. It's a lot easier to sit there and say the board really likes what you're doing when, including yourself, there are 5 McCaskeys on the fucking board for this organization. Unbelievable. This is the Bears football that we're talking about. Bringing in a guy who built a bunch of Super Bowl losers and almost wasted a generational quarterback like Peyton Manning, built 1 Super Bowl champion around him, and only got that Super Bowl championship because of the Bears. We're going to have Bean Count and Ted involved in the general manager and head coaching hires and negotiating the contracts because that never fucking worked out right. Why trust Ted Phillips? Why? Fixing your family's financial fuck-ups is not the same as football results on the goddamn fucking football field. And then, of course, Bean Count and Ted and all his infinite fucking wisdom. Well, you know, I don't regret hiring Nagy and Ryan Pace. I won't shit on him as much for that because at the end of the day, you shouldn't live life with regrets. You should look at mistakes. You could say, at the end of the day, it was a mistake. I wish he would take accountability, but that's the problem with this Bears organization. They all either have their heads so far in the sand like they're fucking ostriches or their heads so far up their asses, they can't see here from there and see that they're the problem. But I can actually be okay with saying Pace and Nagy aren't regrets. Because considering the other history under Ted Phillips, it probably not. Like even when you talk about Lovie Smith, who was the best head coach in the Bears history since Mike Ditka, you know, he only came into the fold after they fucking botched the whole Saban handling. Remember Jerry Angelo? Saban was his fishing buddy. We heard about for 2 years he was going to bring in Nick Saban. He couldn't wait to get rid of fucking Nick Geron. And then when it came time for fucking Jerry Angelo, the Ayatollah, and goddamn Ted Phillips to negotiate with Nick Saban and talk turkey, they lowballed him by like $1.5 million, and he went to Miami instead eventually. You remember that shit? I do. I certainly do. That's what you're talking about here with Ted Phillips. And this is the asshole, his best coach that he ever hired and was ever involved with, the best general manager he ever hired or was involved with. One became because of a headhunting service that you leveraged because you didn't know what the fuck you were doing over 2 decades ago. And the other came because it was your second option. You almost hired fucking Russ Grimm. Remember that legendary press conference? We're going to run the ball, we're going to pass the ball, and by God, we're going to win football games. Almost so simplistic, it's genius, you almost wish they could have fucking hired him. Kept him at the ready. So now this asshole is going to be helping to hire the next general manager and head coach. The bigger thing that you should fillet Ted Phillips for in effigy in Chicago right now is when saying, I want to look for candidates that have a lot of the same qualities as Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy. No, you fucking don't. You want to look for the opposite. You want to look for successful people. You want to look for goddamn winners. This is why I always say Bears football when it comes to this organization. Because that is not a good thing. Everything you saw on Monday afternoon's press conference is the personification, the epitome of Bears football. Take your Harbaugh hopes and launch them into the fucking sun. Get prepared for Trace Armstrong and goddamn Leslie Frazier and get ready for more years of Bears football. Yuck, George. I think that went well. Did it, George? Did it?